I think it's something that I connected, if you connect with music, if you especially as a kid, you're like, you see that, like the musicians that I was drawn to as a child came from my parents, of course, like looking through your parents' record collection. But listening to like old R&B and old soul, there's so much more. There's soul in it, and I came up I was born in 84. So I came up in the 90s and in that kind of, grunge era and through the 80s, which was more of like the cool, it's kind of a cool era and a money era into this kind of disaffected youth grunge era, which I mean, to be fair, the Velvet Underground started that long before, but it kind of resurfaced. And I never really connected with that type of music, and I think it was, it was really hip hop was the first thing that really, really grabbed me. There were a couple bands I liked when I was younger that I got from my brother, but when I discovered hip hop, it was like, oh, this is soul. This is people speaking truth, and they're speaking about the self a lot, which I think some people they're like, you rap, or how does that inform Future Islands? They don't understand that came long before Future Islands, and that's like how I learned to write. But simply to me, the MC talks about their personal stories and their struggles. And within rock music, a lot of times it's more of a universal stories or, just using a more universal language to tell a story. Hip hop is extremely self-reflective, and I always say it's like the only genre where people literally say their own name. They like big up themselves, and that's part of the mask of it. It's part of the sword of it. It's part of the shield of it. Is that armor that sometimes we have to give ourselves to make ourselves feel stronger, which is I think what I connected with, but it connected me back to that soul and like not just saying something that's true, but performing it in that same way, performing it like it really means it, and not the disaffected youth or the too cool to care. It's like, no, I want to like feel it. You watch, like, I remember I was watching a documentary on Otis Redding and just seeing him. He like, his performance style was like, and I watch performers, I watch singers, and I always say, like, if you don't have a guitar, if you're not at a piano, you better be doing something. Like if you're just holding a mic. Dude,
have you ever been watching a band and you're like,
all the time,
you're so awkward up there.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't knock people, people have their own, comfort on stage and what they want to do. And I consider myself a performer before a singer. A singer is something that I've just done, but performance is where I feel comfortable and trying that connection and connecting with the spirit of music and the songs and all that stuff. But yeah, putting it out there. But yeah, like watching Otis, I was amazed. This is only maybe 5 or 6 years ago I saw this, because he stood like a tree, his feet are just rooted in the ground. He wasn't dancing, but it was all in his upper body. And he's just like, it was just like this one performance was like pouring sweat and tears and emotion, but just like rooted in the ground. And I was like, I'm going to try that. And there's a song that we used to play that I would do it like Otis would do it. I like, because of that performance. And I wanted to feel what that felt like, to not let my legs fly, but to like, what if I really root myself in this song and this feeling? So it's also interesting to try those kinds of things. I mean, I grew up seeing the old James Brown performances, old Elvis performances. I mean, you watch old James Brown performances.
Let's back up a second. What was how did that impact the performance? Going the Otis route?
I think it just gave me another frame of reference. I mean, part of that song too was I was trying to root my voice more. I felt like I was missing, and I looked for it. It was an old song we used to do called North Star. It's off our 5th album, and it has a bit of soul to it. And that was the thing. I was just, I don't know. I don't know how it changed it. I mean, it did. And it's something I had to remind myself of. I was like, had to remind myself about trying to ground myself to feel the song more.
Do you still get hyper self-conscious when you're out there?
Not, I mean, that the goal is to never be self-conscious, but, uh, it's like, the better you get at something, the more time slows down, you know? It's like, if you hit, 100-mile fastballs, you like you just see it differently. If you're used to hitting like a 9,500 mile per hour fastball and then you get an 88, like it's just like slow motion. So I feel like as I've gotten better as a performer, as I understand my audience, my movement, what the different things do, what I can enact, you see things before they come. It's almost like in freestyle, like when there was a time when I'm not up to, I do not have my chops these days. It's been many years, but any freestyle will tell you, when you get to that open space, like you see ahead of it. You're already connecting the rhyme as you're saying the word. The word that is coming from, from space filtered through you. You're already seeing ahead of it, and that's like that time slowing down, and kind of being in that flow. So, there's times where my body hurts, or my voice hurts, and I'm self-conscious about those things, about going too far physically, with, either my legs or my voice, because I have to think about the next show too.
You mean just pushing yourself too far?
Yes. Yeah. Because, in the old days, I would drink a lot. I mean, I still have a couple drinks before I go on stage, but I used to have a lot of drinks. And that was, when you do that, I did it to numb the pain of my body, and tour and just having some fun. But then it became about really numbing your body. But then you lose the threshold of pain. You need pain. Pain response exists for a reason, so that you don't push past it and hurt yourself. And so I was just doing that night after night after night. And I had to find new ways to start looking after myself. So those things get in my head. I can be self-conscious about an audience, but I'm kind of past that, because I know so much of, like, if the audience isn't connecting, in the old days, I used to really go after them. If I felt that I needed them to get on my side, or I just needed to get a reaction from them. But I think just through maturity and experience, I've found that I really need to relax and go with myself, and then they will ultimately connect or not connect. I have to have joy, and I have to be honest with the emotion, and because you're not going to catch everybody. The intimidation factor of going after the crowd, though, it creates a very quick reaction. People either are like, okay, I'm leaving, or I'm very engaged. But I think I think in going a little bit easier. I mean, I did that even recently. We did a tour opening for Weezer in, was that 22? I think in 20, or maybe that was just last year.
It might have been last year. It was recently.
Yeah, but their crowd was very confused by me. I think people are still fighting online about that, and I'm just like, we're just a band, and your favorite band asked us to play. Like, what?
I mean, listen, like, I've seen Weezer before, and as far as like Weezer's like weird pairings go, you're
pretty high up
far
there
off the mark. Like, no, not at all. Quite the contrary. Like, I've seen them with some weird like metal bands in the past. But you've said something again in response to the Late Show performance that I think makes a lot of sense. That just the act of being polarizing is powerful in and of itself.
Yes. Yeah, I think. I mean, that's good art. That's like what. There was once a time that I considered myself a visual artist many, many years ago. And I was, very, at that time, I was 17, 18 years old, and I was all about performance art. I just discovered performance art, and it just kind of blew my mind, because it was like, well, you have this thing that there's no product, you can't sell it. The process of doing it is basically the art, there's not like an end thing. And it's more about it was like these, there's this artist named Tashing Hasai, who was known he did like 7 or 8 one-year performances. And it was more like a test of will power for the artist. But like I said, there was no I think, he'd spend a year of his time. Like one of the performances was like, I can't go inside a building for a year. And he lived in New York City. And so he basically he just had to live. He lived in the streets but he got hounded by police. He got thrown in jail. He like lost his mind because he's like, you're ruining my art. And, all that's left is this 10-minute film of his year of struggle, and you can't sell it. So I was really interested by that part of the artist who is not interested in kind of a monetary gain, but is into the process of doing and sacrifice. If you talk about old music, like, man, I'm sorry, I'm so tangential. If you talk about like folk music, from the old days, I mean, like old country blues, the
Mississippi Delta. Yeah.
There's no money attached, it's just like people who had a story to tell or wanted to.
And they didn't expect to be recorded in most cases.
Exactly. It was just for like the joy, or, going back to the old bard days, just like, maybe make some coin telling the news from across the land. But I have been interested with that too, because it is, and of course, we live in this world, and when you're out there, you're like, I'm in pain. I better make something doing this. I'm sorry, I got way off the mark.
In a certain sense, that maybe, because what you're describing is kind of anti-capitalist.
We're talking about polarization. Yeah,
that almost like runs counter to this other drive that you have to really connect with people at the same time. In terms of like making art for art's sake, doing something that's potentially alienating, but also, performing, as you're saying, in this room and like, beating people over the head with it and really trying to sort of connect with them on that level.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not beating people up as much. I'm not beating anybody up. I'm not going after people as much. And I'm trying to find joy in the art and even in the pain of the art, which is, so much of what we do is about, the struggles and dramas of my life. The guys have allowed me the space to sing very personal stories. And in a weird way, that's, it's cataloged a good bit of my life. And you can really, you can listen to our first album and hear just this anger and this drive and frustration of a kid, like a 23-year-old kid. And now it's a much more mature sound because it's really is the journey of people, of a person, but also the band, like they create the bedrock, and they create the bed of emotions, for me to speak from. And that's where I pull the emotions from, whatever I'm going within my life. But, making people, polarizing people, I think the interesting thing about it was that's, you create a dialogue that exists outside of yourself, which is, you can look at it a few ways, because it's hard. If there's like 51 people that love you and 49 that hate you, there's a good chance you're going to be like 49 people hate me. but the thing that they create between themselves, it's just like a fire, it's just like two sticks rubbing against one another. It creates a fire. And that's kind of what that moment did. Because I just don't think people will get to see that or at least 10 years ago, I don't think we see that kind of, that performance. I mean, a lot of people thought it was dishonest. So, and some people are still confused, by my style, but not at a Future Island show, at like our shows. I think people, they come there for a reason. And I think the job what we're trying to do is the opposite of alienate people. It's really to create a space where people feel comfortable to be free, because I'm not like I'm not a typical front person, and we are not like we're very, I wouldn't say we're anti-fashion, but we're not a fashion band. We came up and through the back door to do this thing. As far as like how far we've been able to go, and the amount of people that we've been able to reach, I don't think that would have happened without without that Letterman performance, of course. And with time, I like accept that as a positive, but it's hard too, because the more eyes that are on you, the harder it is to kind of be honest to yourself, because you feel like you're trying to create for other people. So we kind of like that. All of that did kind of mess us up for a little bit. I think it made us out of sorts. It was like, oh, people are finally listening. 10 years in, they're finally paying attention. So let's do what they like. And we did that for one record. And then we're like, maybe that wasn't what we should have done. And we've been trying to get back to ourselves since then. And I feel really good about where we are now. Very proud of the record we just made, and really proud of the record before that. It kind of went under the radar because we put it out in the pandemic. But
I was reading a recent interview, I think it might have been the Stereo Gum one, and you told a story that, you know, that really connected with me and probably with a lot of other people, of this period in your life. I think you were probably in high school at the time, and you're doing rap battles, and you had one really bad performance, and that and that really like sidelined you for like 6 months. I mean, that was a profound moment for you.
It was bad, man. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to like liken it to something. It was extremely emasculating. I mean, that's the word for it. But I can't really say another thing. I couldn't even get a word out. I mean, these people were just booing me. But it was definitely a humbling experience, and I was very arrogant when I was 17 and 18, which led to a lot of issues in the coming years. Arrogant more towards my ability. But, you know, most 18-year-olds also think they're invincible, which I did, I sold drugs for years and then got addicted. And that's more what I'm speaking to. But that moment, getting beat in a freestyle battle really bad, I couldn't even get words out because people were just booing over me. I mean, it really wasn't fair, but just that feeling of like, I can't do this. I couldn't really rap for like 6 months. But the thing it taught me was, to be humble, but also, and to not go pick a fight, because I went to a rival school and was like, bring me your best MC. And then I got very quickly booed out of the place. And
Julius Caesar just
bring me your best. It was bad. And then, but it also spoke to what I kind of already knew, but which is the power of words, and words have, so they're the world to me. They are my world. Like, words gave me power as a young kid. They gave me a voice. They gave me an identity. It gave me, it was my work, is my play. And so much joy has come from that. The word is very important to me. So to be destroyed by the word, to have the word taken away from me, it made me, also, be humble to the fact that, this is a powerful tool. And so, I had a teacher around that shortly after this happened, or that was my senior year. So it would have been before, this was at like a special art school for kids that I was nominated and got into right before my senior year of high school. And I had this teacher that was like, he was basically like, you are a slacker. You don't give a shit, but you have a great gift, and you can use that gift, or you can abuse it. He didn't say that I could lose it, but he's like, you literally have a power on stage. He told me this as a 17-year-old kid. And are you going to use it for good or bad? And then, I get destroyed on the hunt for a battle. And then I'm like, I think I'm going to rethink.
Use it for evil.
Build. Yeah. I think I want to build. I don't, within the freestyle world, it's like, you want to build or you want to battle. I was definitely more of a builder, but that's the thing. Like, I see so much of that still to this day. I think about my old teacher. and the gift that he gave me, which was really a boost of confidence, but also it was, it was a slap to be like, wake up, don't, use this thing that you have. You can do something good with this thing. And I feel like I've been able to do that. I mean, I've always loved the stage, and I understand the power of it. I understand the power of the position and the position of a band that people care about, that they're like, you're a part of my life. And there's pressure in that. There's responsibility in that, to continue forward, to continue to give people, points to reflect upon within my own life, to be honest, which is something that I still deal with, like it's isolating sometimes. And I deal with social anxiety that's grown as the band has grown. I think because of that responsibility. So these are all things that I work on and I'm working on, through self-care and therapy and things like that. But and that's like life too. I feel lucky that I have the ability to both do what I do and support myself in that, in taking care of myself, to be able to do both things. Because there was a time in my life where I was like giving 120% on stage and then giving 120% of myself off stage. And then I would just became a raw body, I was just I was deadened inside, and afraid. So yeah, I don't know.
Social anxiety is a weird one. I experience it too. And it just seems so completely arbitrary sometimes because, like I do this job. I'm a writer for a living, but I interview people on stage and I could talk to strangers, but I go to like a party where I don't know anybody. And that's where I just completely shut down. And that's been a really difficult thing for me to reconcile in my life because again, on the face of it, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
What, just that you are an outgoing and gregarious person and yet you have the issue with...
There are certain even like potentially lower pressure situations where I just completely shut down.
Well, but it's also easy to think that those are higher pressure situations, and feel that, I mean, to me, that like, and that, that's a bad, I don't know if that's like a form of masking or something where you're like, on stage, I feel I know what I'm supposed to do, like
you've got a role.
I've got a role. I'm supposed to be there. And we're going to have fun. And I've got my friends who I trust, who trust me behind me. Like, so we're all together, so there's something for me to do. And when I go to a party, I'm like I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's a different thing. I talked about that recently in an interview, just like, going to a Christmas party is like the most stressful thing I can ever imagine. And then you're like, oh, I have a friend here, then it's okay. You just kind of need, if you have one person to talk to, then it's all right. You can have a good time. But I'm often going places and have already plotted my escape. But I'm also like you said, it is a strange thing because I am kind of introverted and on my own, I'm somewhat reclusive. I'm really happy with my small circle. I have my partner and that's, and my friends, my few close friends. There was a time in my life where I was like, I have so many friends, and then I went through a really bad relationship, and a lot of my friends hurt me through that, and I was like, maybe that's not real, and it was a hard time. But then it made me realize like the importance of of my real friends and who my real friends were. It made my world a little bit smaller, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just trying to say like, we have to give ourselves grace in that time to be like, it's just kind of how I am and how I feel.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I stopped drinking, for like health reasons and other reasons as well. And a lot of times it's not until you stop doing it when you really realize like how important that was as a social lubricant. And I'm wondering like, for you, you're describing this period, and I think most of us have been through this where like everything is going wrong, after, you're down yourself, there's some self-medication happening during that period. Was that to a certain extent a way to deal with your anxiety?
Yeah. I mean, drugs, I had a cocaine addiction. So I was like,
that really makes you the life of the party, right?
Well, it's supposed to. My whole style, I mean, I was not a social user, which is when you create real problems. It's just like if you drink alone, then you're an alcoholic,
And doing coke alone is like even kind of next level with that.
It's really next level. And it was me. It was literally, I've written a lot of lines about that simple. It's a very, to me, it's like or it's just like it's a huge thing in my world, but that staring at your own face in the mirror, that you're like undoing yourself and you're just seeing your face come apart, and you're just like, and you just keep going in and you just keep looking at yourself over and over in that mirror as you're just doing lines after lines.
Specifically like the kind of the shift in perception that you get on drugs, you mean?
Well, just more, I mean, and that's what I was searching for. A lot of times it was about, I wanted to, I mean, of course you're courting death. I mean, that's what I was doing. I was courting, the end. And it was, I mean, I think it was darker than just an escapism. It may have started as an escapism and a bit of fun, but then it was very much like, oh, this takes me to a place, cause when I first was starting to use a lot, I was writing a lot, and I felt that I was creating, positive things, but I wasn't. And then when I got out of that after 2.5 years, I was basically like a gram a day for 2.5 years. I didn't have anything. I was completely gone. That spirit of myself that loved to write and trusted myself, and that confidence I had in myself as an artist was all gone. So it took a few years to gain that back and to trust myself to go in. But I would slip. Once or twice a year, for many years. I'm now I'm 2.5 years clean. And I hadn't ever gone a year since I first got clean. Like I said, once or twice a year, I would slip, when I would have a hard time, and I would be like, I get a case of beer and a couple grams, and I would go and sit in a room somewhere and look at myself in a mirror and be like, you fucking suck. and then I would come out of that room the next day feeling horrible. And I would be like, okay, and it was all about touching. I would always say it was about touching the bottom. Like I needed to touch the bottom so I could come up again, but I was also, it's a very dangerous game that I was playing, alone. With no one to watch me, for no one to check me. And there was one night I just woke up covered in blood on like my floor, and I had to go and play a festival in Alabama the next day. So I wake up, oh man, this is a crazy I was pissing out the window in some fog, and I fell asleep. And I fell backwards. I didn't fall out the window, but I fell backwards and I hit myself on the bed over my eye. I still have a little scar. I was passed out and I woke up and my eye was shut. I thought something happened to my eye, and I went to the bathroom in the dark and washed my eye off, and then my eye opened up and it was just like this open wound. So like those kinds of moments, and and that's the whole thing, that I went another 2 years of still like courting death every once in a while, and touching the bottom, until I was like, I have to go to therapy. I'm in therapy now, and that's helped me out to be accountable to myself.
Insofar as, you've been able to kind of extrapolate that in conversations with your therapist, like what is that impulse?
To self-immolate?
Courting death, as you put it.
That's just, I don't know if he's ever told me. I mean, I think that's for me to find. I mean, in my experience, I've had suicidal ideation since I was like 13. never really close to, that's the thing. I would never do it to myself. And that's always my thinking. Like the things that have kept me here, I've sung about a lot in Future Island songs. I've sung about a lot in Hemlock. The things that have kept me here are remembering the people that I love and the people that love me. Because those feelings that make you not want to be here is about feeling unloved and misunderstood, isolated, alone. And so you say, or overwhelmed, overwhelmed by the amount of work you need to do, the things that you can't imagine having to do that you have to do. And I guess probably being close to it. There's a thing that I've thought about a lot. Did I put that in a song? I don't. When I was like 9 years old, it was between 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. I lost like 3 of my grandparents in a year. And I think that like amount of death at that time made me very, I wasn't afraid of it for myself. But it just made me very aware of death. And I think I was probably actually depressed and confused and didn't know what to do with it. Cause I mean, a lot of that is, a lot of people just don't think about suicide, and for those people, I'm like,
which is great.
I'm
Good
like, lucky. I'm like, how do you not? I know there's like an old Norm Macdonald clip where he's like, you've never thought about that? Like the end of all this misery and pain, the great escape. You've never thought about that? So, I see that edge, and that's where cocaine took me, was to that edge, and courting. I say courting it because I wasn't like, I hope I die today, but it was like, if I do, I didn't do it on purpose. And he died doing what he loved. Cause he's a cokehead. And shit, man, with fentanyl now, I mean, it's really scary, man. It's really scary, but it's just like a part of some weird part of me that is also the reason that I am an artist. It's the reason that I create. It's the reason that I sing about the personal stuff, because I'm trying to find it for myself. The positive part of the band is that the people that need to find it have found it. There are certain songs that we've written that, and speaking about this in particular, say like Thrill is maybe one of the only songs where it's explicitly about drug addiction and my own drug addiction. From Future Island standpoint, there's a lot of that within Hemlock Ernst stuff, but I haven't really played with that too much in Future Islands, just because it's such I don't know if it's a scary subject for the guys, even though, we have two. Mike, our drummer, is like almost 14 years sober, AA. He goes to meetings on the road. He's a sponsor to many people, and he's like just such a really positive. He's such a positive force within the band. He's been with us for 10 years, almost. I think he's coming up right on 10 years now. But so we actually have, I'm sorry, almost 11 years. We actually have a lot of this within the band. William, our bassist, is I think 11 years sober now. Maybe he just got 10. So, and that's the thing for bands with, it's like, people are like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? And it's like, well, not if you keep going, because when you keep going, everyone becomes vegan, straight edge by the end.
If you're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. If they're going to be able to do it, for too long. And so there's also resources in that sense. Like Mike I can have those kinds of conversations with Mike. He understands those feelings. He went through those same feelings. That's what led him to the crazy places that he went, that then got him sober. And so there's like a positive reflection there, but it's a tricky line to walk. I think within Hemlock, where it's just me, it's completely me and my soul on the line. Like I'm really able to say, even as open as I am within Future Islands, like Hemlock is really the cutting diary. It's really going, and not, there's so much in there. There's so many words, that I don't know if everybody catches everything, but that's the thing. That's the long play of like, exercising, OR exercising that like demon and getting things out. Cause also it's about, when I write a song and I say something the words that I want to live by myself, that I feel are important for me to live by, I write them down. I look at that, I sing it 100 times, and then you record it and you play it live. And then you saw those people staring back at you. And then all of a sudden you're accountable to all of these people to live in that way that you wish to live. And then it's something that has made me stronger, and made me more reflective, is actually the act of doing, the act of performing and living, and just trying to be honest with the audience in more ways than just like through the words, it's like, no, you guys are like, you're really important. I don't think you realize how important you are. There's a song we have called A Dream of You and Me, where it says, I wrestle by the sea, a loneliness in me. I asked myself for peace and I found it at my feet. And the thing that I realized, I just got chills a little bit. The thing that I realized very recently, and I've said to the audiences a few times, which is like, I don't think you realize that you're the sea. Like you are the sea. You're the sea of people. I ask myself for peace, and I have this place where I feel at home, that I feel like I'm supposed to be here,
Was that clear to you when you were writing the piece, or is that something that's really developed over time?
No,
that metaphor.
No, that's something developed. And like I said, I think we find those, we find those things in the moments that we need to. In writing, especially, I'm not a concept writer. I rarely write conceptually. I try to write I like to write on inspiration and feeling. It's like heart over mind, to be less intellectual and more human.
It's hard to do, especially with somebody who suffers from, anxiety and lives in their own head a lot.
Well, but that's where you take it down. You write the clever line and you're like, fuck that. Don't be clever. Don't be clever right now. Be honest. There's a difference. There's a real difference between being clever and being honest. And it's the lines, in Future Islands, I'm not trying to be clever and funny ever. If I write a clever, funny line for Hemlock, then I tickle myself and I'm like, that's going in there.
I've had this conversation with people recently where it's like, hey, do you think that I would be further along in my career if I didn't joke so often? Because, it is a way of sort of diffusing the situation.
Exactly.
Like, it's a good skill to have and it's important, but it does it's an easy way to derail things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I did an acting gig a couple years ago through 22, and I got scouted for this part and did it because I was going through a crazy time in my life. And I was like, what do I have to lose? I guess I'll try this thing. They set me up with this acting coach, and he was awesome, and he just made me feel really comfortable. And it was cool because we only had like 6 sessions, and he kind of helped me get ready for my first day. And then I was on my own. But in those sessions, there was a moment where we were reading this one scene, and he was like, why do you keep smiling and kind of like laughing in the scene? And I'm like, well, that's the guy, he's telling this really, intense story, and he's diffusing his emotion because he's uncomfortable, and then he's like, I don't think that's what he's doing. I think that's what Sam would do if Sam was the character. Sam would laugh it off to not look at the truth, and not make it uncomfortable. But I don't think that's what the character would do. And he was like, now do it, read it again and try not to smile or like scoff or laugh. And I did it. And, he was like, how do you feel? And I was like, I feel fucking crazy, man. He's like, do you feel it? He's like, cause I saw it in your face. And I was like, yeah, no, I feel like all of these, I feel extremely emotional right now. And he's like, yeah, that's cause you didn't blow off that steam. You let the emotion sit in your chest and I could see it in your face. And he's like, that's what you need to do. I mean, it was very simple lessons he taught me, but I was able to take that. And a lot of things he taught me, I was able to take to the stage, as much as I was able to take things from the stage into the TV show. I was also able to take what I learned there back onto the stage and try to sit, and you learn in therapy, like sit in your emotion, don't just react, or shut down, disassociate, but like feel what it feels like, which is, important to hear as a person who has a substance issues, where you're just like, I'm gonna order some drugs or a pizza. It's like, no, I'm just gonna feel this for a minute and then I'm gonna reconsider. So I keep getting off tangent.
No, it's great. It's conversational. I mean, so Art Lord, was that diffusing?
Art Lord was performance art.
But there's a sense in which, because, it was humorous and it wasn't.
Yes.
I mean, did you not take yourselves super seriously?
Well, the thing was, Art Lord, the concept was not supposed to be funny. And then it was hilarious. And the funny thing, so Art Lord came about, and that was, me and Garrett, our keyboard player, we were best friends through high school. We went off to college together. I went into the art school at East Carolina University. And then in the fall of 2002, and then I met William in like our first day. We had like 3 classes together. And by the second class, we were walking to class together, like, oh, you're heading there. We just became fast friends. We started like immediately, we're like, we should start a performance art collective. And then we like came up with the name for it. It's still the LLC that we like operate Future Islands under, is Ideas for House Crafts, which was the initial Ideas for House Crafts.
Sketchy.
Yeah. We're like ideas for mouse pads, light beers for house dads. And we just go on and on. And it was like this weird inside joke, and we're like, well, that'll be the name of our collective. And then we started talking about having a band like over that first Christmas, and then the concept was born. But yeah, it started off as a concept band where I was the German Lord of Art, self-proclaimed, who at the age of 18 was so famous that it just became too much for him. So he ran off into the woods, never to return again. But he did return to the small town of Greenville, North Carolina, with his self-portraits that he brought to life. So it was like, but the concept was about how we treat like that kind of like celebrity within our society, like rock stars, famous actors, art stars, and how they can kind of be like pretentious dickheads. And we're still just like hanging on their every word. We just want from them. They can be horrible, but we want from them. So originally the Art Lord came out and was just like, I hate you all, but you love me. Aren't I wonderful? And then people are like, this is amazing. They just fell in love with this character, and it proved itself, if you know what I'm saying. Like,
it was Will Ferrell and Zoolander, basically.
Precisely. And it was Sprockets, it was like, we wanted to be like Kraftwerk, but so it was born as the performance art. But, within 8 months, we had kind of run out of these kind of concept songs. And I'd never written songs before, outside of rap verse. So it was all new to me. Garrett had never played the keyboard before. William had never played the bass before. So really all learning together in this new thing. And that's what made it kind of more, it wasn't like a band that we were taking serious. It was like, it was about like creating these happenings, bringing people together and like having a good time. But then once we kind of written through the initial concept, we started writing songs that were they were better because we were getting better. But for me, the lyrics were much more personal, but I was able to hide them. I was able to hide them behind the mask of the character. So I could sing about like the isolation of being this great artist, the isolation of being so great makes you feel so alone. And quite literally, I would be like, but I feel isolated, So it was like honest to a point, but I could hide behind it. So it was the character, the humor within it, and the actual costumery it was all, definitely diffusing the truth behind it, which was that, there was pain behind it, because that's the Art Lord was like a pained figure. He was supposed to be pained and alone, but there was a part of that was definitely me, all along. So it was a crazy transition. I'm sorry. It was a crazy transition when we went to Future Islands, because all of a sudden I had to actually be the face of my words. You know what I mean? Like I could no longer be like, that's not me. That's just a character. I had to, and for the first few months, it was, I didn't really like it. I didn't like that feeling of having to own that. And then I started to feel like the release of it, how it felt to get those things out and be like, this is me. And at the same time, this is like right after, cause like we started the band in February 2006, and the end of June 2006, I left Greenville and got out of my drug addiction. I mean, you're always an addict. That doesn't stop, but I didn't use every day again. And it took me years to kind of get back and find myself writing again. And so that was part of the process too, of becoming comfortable in my own skin in front of people as myself. Now, I'd never felt that way with, doing freestyle battles or that kind of stuff. I felt really comfortable. The singing makes it slightly more vulnerable. The form of a rap allows a lot more, like I was saying before, like it allows armor,
Boasting is kind of built in.
Yeah. Yeah. Boasting. And it's, that's kind of what hip hop was born on. But being strong in telling hard stories was what I connected with, like listening to KRS-One, early on. And that's what he gave me. And that's what I do with Future Islands. So that's like the thing that it's so connected.
At the top, I was commenting on your earnestness, but another thing that really jumps out to me about you and the way you go through the world is that you are very self-analytical, to the point where you're able to sort of go back and describe why you were doing what you were doing. I mean, one, is that something that only really comes with hindsight? And two, is there a point in which, especially as it pertains to art, that you can be overly analytical to the point that it kind of ruins the thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, being over analytical as well as an artist keeps a lot of great artists from ever being heard. That perfectionism is both like really important to being an artist and also can be damning. If you're not, at some point you have to be like, this isn't mine anymore. Because that is essentially what you're doing when you go from creating and poring over something, in and out of the studio, recording it and releasing it. Once you release it, it's not yours. And I don't know if, journalists or even music lovers or music haters understand how hard it is when someone's just like, I heard 2 songs, I hate this record. And you're just like, I spent 2 years.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too. Like, as it relates to your hip hop career, where people are like, oh, you rap too, like it's this side thing, but really it's this thing you've been passionate about for your entire life.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons that I don't really blast it out there. Like I don't really promote it, because also I don't want it to become, Future Islands is like, it's my art, but it's also become my job, and there's a lot of business involved. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made. There's a lot of money that goes around. There's families that need to be fed, not just within the band, but, the crew, that, are, the amazing people that go out on the road with us, like those things go into when I'm tired and I'm like, I don't know if I want to tour next year. It's like, but people need to make money, and it's not just the band, it's the crew. Like they need to work, and we don't want them to, we don't want them to just go think that we've forsaken them. So those things are really important. And with Hemlock, I want it to be about the love and about the expression and about all of that. And I don't want to have to sign contracts and do tours and do tons of press, because I want it to always be something that gives to me, and that's really, I know that seems strange, but I think that's, I respect the artists who are like, I can just do this for myself. I don't always believe them.
What do you mean I can do this for myself? Oh, making art for the sake of art?
Yeah, yeah. I think there are people that really can do that. I think for me, what I found is, and this goes against kind of those early ideas and that, like, making art for art's sake and how the sacrifice of that. But now I know that for my art to work and what my art is about, it is about people, and it's about creating spaces for people to be in, and that's within those headspaces. It's also, of course, it is about my personal release, and within art, there's always ego. There has to be ego, or it's not honest. Not ego as necessarily a bad thing, but just there has to be the self. The self is like kind of all there is to explore in art now. If you can, not necessarily. I shouldn't make that blanket statement, but for me, my art isn't, in my music isn't complete until it gets to people. And I guess I'm even second guessing myself there, because I don't really like doing rap shows, because it's just a different experience. It's hard.
You're still releasing it into the world, though. It still gets to people.
Yeah, totally. But with Future Islands, I feel like those songs, I've always said, they aren't complete until they're performed live, and sometimes like those songs aren't done till they've been played like 100 times, because you really find the truth of the songs in the reflection of the audience. You find what, it's just the same thing of like, you can sit with yourself and analyze yourself and know everything that's wrong with you, but you don't make any progress in changing that until you tell someone else. And then they look at you with like pity, anger, disdain, frustration, curiosity. And then you're like, oh, that's how that feels. Or, and then it gives you another level. So then you reflect. I always talk about that accountability of like for me, my truth. And like, I thought I knew what was wrong with me for years, but that didn't change. I was still repeating the same cycles. And then when I started to talk to somebody, it allowed me a mirror to see who I actually was and what I was actually doing.
Let me put this out there, and you could shoot this down if this is totally wrong, but maybe a lot of it comes down to the words themselves, from the standpoint of when you're rapping, it's literal. When you're singing these songs, maybe it's more metaphorical and therefore open to interpretation and really requires that kind of reflection from the audience.
You actually, yeah, I think you're right. I had to break that one down. Well, I literally have a line in a Hemlock song that says, don't read between the lines, just read the fucking lines, and that's asking the, really for critics. It's like, can you you like, don't try to understand what this means. I'm telling you a story. I'm like, listen to the story. I'm giving you everything. But yeah, within Future Islands, I want it to be much more open, and I speak in a much more universal way, to try to create, a broader picture for people to reflect within and find themselves in, to understand, in the simpler ideas. So yeah, I think you're right. I don't know what to do with that.
Have you ever been over to a friend's house to eat and the food was just no good? I stand at the path of distress with intentions to address my intentions to impress where my righteousness went. I'm fighting this shit, the feeling that my demons keep it.